So my name is Christiane, and I was born in France, as you can tell, except my French accent doesn't sound very French. But and I was born in a small town, in a factory town that was basically the Silicon Valley of the Industrial Revolution. So my family was from there from the beginning of the town for like 300 years. They had been working at the same factory, and that's all I ever knew was factory town thing, where everybody in the town worked for the factory. It was actually when I read the story of Bethlehem in Pennsylvania, it's the same story, except Bethlehem is the American version with a lot of immigrant, and the French version had like no immigrant, everybody was born there. But it's pretty much the same thing. And one of the things I got from it is that I realized after I left it that really I'm very focused on how do you build stuff. It's like that's the way I look at everything, and you'll see, because that's what we're going to do. It's like, okay, how does it work? You know, it's like, how does it work? That's like my thing. Even when I was doing quilting, I was publishing how-to magazine. That was like teaching people how to do it, and that's like my thing. So I immigrated in the U.S. when I was 19, and then I lived in New York for a while, and I was au pair, you know, the famous French au pair. That was me. And then I hitchhiked around the country. It was the 70s, so I hitchhiked around the country for about 2 years. And then I went back to France, and then I came back here, and I did that for a little while, like 5 years. I went back and forth because, you know, French people don't immigrate, so it never crossed my mind that I could immigrate. And one day somebody asked me, said, why do you keep going back there? You don't like it? You like it here? Why don't you just stay? Why don't you just immigrate? And I was like, I could immigrate? French people don't immigrate. But it's like, you know, kind of like I thought, oh, maybe I could do that. Actually not go back. And so I immigrated in 78, and then I took notes because I can't remember my life. So I was au pair and all that. And then I worked for a magazine for a while. I waited on tables, and then I worked for Knitting and Crochet magazine. And then I discovered quilting, and my first thing was, I could do a magazine. And so I went around and I picked up people business cards, and I started designing a quilting magazine. And then I put the first issue out and started selling it, and realized there was already 18 quilting magazines on the market. Never crossed my mind that somebody else might have thought of it. But it worked out, you know. It was a good thing that I didn't check, because I probably would have said, nah, not a good idea, and it was a good idea. So I did this for a while, and I did this for like 18 years, and I did that in upstate Pennsylvania, close to Binghamton, New York. And around, I don't know, maybe after like 12 years, I started like really not liking it. I was done with it, and but it was working, and it was great, and so I kind of rearranged everything. So all I had to do was make quilts, and then they were being published just because I said so. And you know, and I thought, well, you know, this is good. Like, other quilters don't get paid to like just do their thing and get published. And but I was not happy. I was having anxiety and all that, to the point where I finally decided, that's it, I'm leaving. And of course I owned the company, so it was a little hard to leave. Like, I couldn't quit my job. Think about it, you know, that whole like self-employed thing, it's not everything you think it is. And but at some point I just left. I got all my employees and I told them, look, you know, you like your job, keep it going. I'm out. And so I left, and I went to the West Coast, and I started doing my thing, like doing quilts that I couldn't explain to people how to make them. And it worked out for a while, but then it didn't work out too good. You know, the company was not doing good. So I came back here and kind of stopped everything and moved to Philadelphia. And I've been here for like 10 years, 12 years now. And And when I got to Philadelphia, my thing was like, okay, I'm going to redesign a new life, and I'm going to make sure that everything I love is in it. So I had a running list on my refrigerator of like, every time I got into something and I really liked it, I put it on the list. So I thought, when I get to put all those things together, I need to have everything, everything that's on my list needs to be in it. And astrology was part of it. And because I had been into astrology forever. Like, I bought books, I read it, I really got into it, and then I got into something else, and then I would come back to it, and every time I got really excited about it. And at one point I even took a class, because that was my thing. I was like, okay, it's like I can't just keep going back and forth into the same books and all that stuff. I need to learn about it. So I took a 5-day retreat workshop. And I thought, after 5 days, all day long, I'll know about astrology. And I came back and I kept telling people, I know about astrology. I know this is so big and so complex and so complicated that it really takes 2 or 3 years of full-time studying to actually get it. That's what I learned in 5 days, how big it was. So then today, then I have to explain it to you in 45 minutes. I wish I had 5 days. That would be so much better. But 45 minutes. So up to this morning, I would still cutting things, looking at this and say, that's too much. That's going to take too long. That's too much information. So I have been cutting things out to kind of make it tight so you can actually understand it. And it's not so big that it's overwhelming. And it's not so little that it's nothing. And so that's my task. So, evolutionary astrology, the way it's different from traditional astrology, it's evolutionary astrology is focused on the story, on the soul journey. So it's really not about this is what happened with you and your mother, because who cares? You already know what happened with you and your mother, really. And I'm also at the point in my life where it's I don't really care. It's I've dealt with stuff. It's that's it. But this is about the soul journey. So it's about one of the easiest way to explain it is that it takes past life into consideration, but a lot of people don't believe in past life. So the other way to say it is that, when a baby is born, you look in that baby's eyes and there is somebody there. It's we're not born blank slates. So however you explain that there is somebody there when we're born, that's what is in the chart. And that's that's part of what evolutionary astrology includes in it. And it kind of explain, those things that we do. And I'm sure I do it. I'm sure you do it too. It's there are stuff that it's issues that keeps coming back. And you don't really know why it's such a big deal, because you got it, you understand it, you went to, you know where it came from and all that. And it's still there, and it's still much bigger. You can only explain it with your family and your mother and your father and all that, just so far. It gets to a point where it's there's more to it than just that. And it's that's what that is. It's the idea that we came here to work out something. And the way evolutionary astrology explains it is that we came with a soul wound that needs to be healed. And it's you explain it with well, this happened to me in the past life, or you explain it with okay, this is my job in this lifetime coming from God or whatever, or you explain it with science that, they, in the genome, that's they can tell that all the emotional trauma of your family is in your genes, you're born with it, and it's that's part of the thing. It's, however you explain it, there's, we have a deep wounding that we come with, and the goal of life is to kind of heal it, and we can't do it wrong, because, if you came to learn forgiveness, either you learn it by doing it, and it's great, or you learn it by not doing it, and then you really learn about forgiveness, about what happened when you don't do it. Either way, it's just about how much pain do you want to be in, and so astrology, so that's, the big difference with evolutionary astrology. It's like the idea, it really believes in the idea that we have freedom. We came with, we have free will. So there's stuff that happened to us, and then we have the freedom to react to it or to do with it whatever we want. And so traditionally astrology, does stuff like, oh my God, you're at your Saturn return, my God, that's terrible. Evolutionary astrology kind of like say, okay, so at that point in your life, you're going to have all those influence coming into your life. What you do with it is up to you. Kind of like, it's not predictive, kind of like, if you get pregnant, and, I can tell you, in 15 years, you're going to have a teenager. This is it. I mean, it's like I can look at your chart and say, you know what, in 3 or 4 years, this is what's going to happen to you. Now, what kind of teenager you're going to have and how you're going to deal with it, I don't know, but I can tell you, if everything goes right, you're going to have a teenager. So that's kind of like the idea of evolutionary astrology. It's like it doesn't tell you what you're going to do with it, but it does tell you what's going to happen. So I was thinking, we're going to start, I wanted to take it, this morning I cut out all the rest and I thought, we'll go straight to the American chart. So, but there's like two things that you need to know about before we can look at the chart of the United States. There is two things, like in the little flyers that you have there, in the back you'll see there is like a standard chart which start with, so the chart is, just in case, this is the picture of the sky from where you were born at the time of your birth. So it tells you, okay, when you were born, Saturn was there, the sun was there, the moon was there. This is like a map of the sky. And this is the ascendant, this is the horizon. And it's backwards, and I won't tell you why, but the east is here. This is where the sun rises, and this is where the sun sets. So this is the horizon. So you have, and then it goes like this. So you have the first house, second house, third house, and each house represents a part of your life. So everybody's got the same number of houses, they're all in the same area and thing, and you have like, the first house is what you who you are, like how you set boundaries, all that. And it's associated with Aries and with Mars. But they all have the same energy, but they're not the same thing. A lot of people in astrology will say, well, if your sun is in the third house or in Gemini, like we put so much stuff together that we end up like, you cover half of the population with one statement, and it doesn't really work. It's not, the house is the area in your life. So that's like whatever you have in your first house, it's the way it shows up in your life is how you set boundaries and how you make decisions and that type of thing. Then Aries, we all have Aries somewhere in our chart. Aries is, when you say I am an Aries, I am Cancer, that's exactly it. It's like it's the quality of it. So if you have your sun in Aries, who you are at your core has the energy of Aries. But if your sun is in Cancer, who you are at your core has the energy of Cancer. So it's like the energy that it brings. And then the planets are the voice in your head. There's one voice that says, you should make a decision. The other one is like, says, well, yeah, but I don't want to hurt anybody's feeling. And then the other one says, you need to those are the rules. And the other one says, well, yeah, but I don't feel like it. And those kind. So those are the planets. They're the voice in your head. So if you have Mars, That's the voice that says you need to make a decision, we need to set boundaries, we need to do stuff, and all that. If you have that in Cancer, which is all about the home and all that stuff, it's like your Mars is going to be talking to you about, feelings. Because that's what Cancer does. It talks about feelings. So it's like, you get me? It's like, so you have those three things that are just, like they like overlap each other. So that's how you end up having your Sun in Pisces in the third house, and you have to put those three things together in order to actually. So every person who's got their Sun in Pisces can be very different because their Sun in Pisces express themselves in very different area in their life. Okay, so that's like, then you have the one way to understand it better. It's that you have dyads. They're like, you have houses like Aries and Mars and the first house is right across from Libra, Venus, and the seventh house. And the thing they have, they're like, I like to call them the divine paradox. It's those things that you can't really, Mars is all about setting boundaries and all that stuff, and the seventh house is all about collaboration and things. So one is about, this is what I'm going to do, this is what we're going to do and all that stuff, and the other it's like, well, let's talk, and it's like they work together. They look like they're totally opposite, but really in order to work well, they have to work together. And each one of them has a high expression. So Mars, the high expression of the first house in the Aries and thing is the ability to make decision, the ability to, it's the warrior, it's the let's go out there and get it done, it's the, it's like the survivor, that kind of energy that we all have, that it's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Like that part, it's like if 51% of me wants to do this, 49% of me wants to do that, we go for the 51% end of the conversation. That's our part. On the other side, you've got Libra, and Libra is all about collaboration. So it's all about partnership and art and peacemaking and, and making, and it's like working things out. So those two are like the high expression of both. But of course, each one, everything in the chart has a high expression and a low expression. And then I like to think of it as the human expression, which means we go up and down all the time. Like nobody gets it high. And hopefully nobody is like totally low all the time. And the low expression of Aries is the bully. It's the my way of the highway. That's the low expression of it. The low expression of Libra is I can't make a decision. So it goes toward I'm a victim, I have no choices, because 51%, 49%, but I don't really want this and all that, it's like that thing that's like, you never, like where you end up feeling victimized because you never make decision. The other low side of it is blaming. It's like, blaming everybody. I can't make the decision and it's everybody's fault. And that makes it a lot easier to make decision. Like you make somebody the bad guy and then you can make a decision. But that's like the low expression of Libra. And you can tell that it's like when you get into the low expression, and we all have Libra in our chart and we all have Venus in our chart. So for some people, this is like a center thing in their life, but we all have it. And when you get into the low expression of Libra, which would be like, I can't make a decision, or I'm blaming people, or I'm trying to manipulate everything so I don't have to make a decision. When you get into that, the out of it is not to get into the high Libra, it's to get into the high Aries. So it's like the way the Libra can actually make a decision and lead and be, it's like, if you're going to be the peacemaker, and if you're going to be the one that's like, see both sides of everything, at one point, you have to make decisions. And it's like you can't be an effective diplomat if you can't make decisions and you can't set boundaries. So, it's like the Libra learns from the high Aries, and the low Aries, the bully, learns from the high Libra, and that's kind of like how they work together. And everything in the chart, all of them kind of work like this. So that's when we get, so I think we've got that, yes. So then we get into, and you have like in that, I put like each of them, the first one is the high expression, the second one, the lower, the one more in the center is the low expression of it. So then we get to the chart of the United States, and we're only going to cover basically the sun. And the United States is July 4th, so the United States is Cancer. And the Cancer, the sun of the United States is right here in the 7th house. So right across it is, well actually, it's like here, because it's, the houses are not all the same size, so it's like, it gets a little bit, but the across it is Capricorn. So the sun in Cancer, the sun is, it's like in the solar system, the sun is at the center. You take the sun out, you don't have much of a solar system. So it's like, it doesn't really matter in your chart, like in your entire chart, if you don't feed your sun, nothing else really matters. It's like really important to feed your sun. And you have things like, you can tell somebody like the old whatever attitude, that's somebody whose sun is not fed. It's like when you feed your sun, you're happy to get up in the morning. You've got energy. If you don't have energy, it could come from other things, but it could also come from the not being excited about your life. And we're not excited about life when we don't leave, when it's not our life, and like where we try to be somebody we're not. And the sun, so the sun is like really important. When a 15 years old keeps saying whatever, that's like normal, because being 15 is about deciding, like discovering what is it that makes me come alive. And it's kind of like, kind of like looking at how am I going to embody my sun. But when a 40 years old have this whatever attitude, there's really something wrong with the way they approach, the way they embody who they are. It's like they're not embodying who they are. It's like people who came to be an artist and they ended up being an accountant, and they're kind of like, it's like they're not excited about their life. That's the sun not being fed. So the United States has a sun in Cancer. Cancer is the great mother. Cancer is the part of life. It's like it goes with the 4th house and with the moon. And Cancer, that's the voice in your head that talks about feelings. Cancer equals feelings. And as with all feelings, it's like you need a sacred space. You need a safe space so you can feel your feelings. So the 4th house is that creation of safe space. And Cancer is, let me see what I told you about it so I don't contradict myself. It's like the nurturing parents, it's the healer, it's and all that. The shadow of Cancer is the wanted child. It's the poor me, nobody likes me, I can't do the whining, the self-pity, all that stuff. That's the shadow of Cancer. In the United States, the whole thing about the pursuit of happiness, that's the Cancer expression of the United States. The whole part about give me your poor, that's the Cancer expression of the United States. Cancer, when Cancer is safe, Cancer is very generous. Cancer is it's the one that's like, will feed everybody as long as they have a safe home and they feel safe. Cancer is the crab. So look at the crab. It's got a shell. Just picture the shell of the crab and put it on top of the map of the United States. It's like we are protected. We've got oceans, we've got desert, we've got, it's like we've got this shell. And that's Cancer. It's like Cancer needs a shell, because a crab without the shell, we all know what it is. You put a little lemon on it and you've got soft shell crab. That's what happened. I mean, for Cancer's got the shell. So it's like the shell, the body grows inside and the shell gets too small. And the crab needs to leave the shell, and it needs to hide, because for a little while there, it's not safe. It doesn't have a shell, and it's going to take a little while to grow a larger shell. So when Cancer gets like, a little like, when it doesn't have its shell, or when somebody tried to get in and all that, Cancer hides. If you know people who are Cancer, when something happened to them, they don't go and talk to everybody about it. They don't answer their phone and they hide. And it's not like, for other people, it might not be healthy, but for Cancer, it's a very healthy thing to do. It's like you go and you hide and you grow your new shell. And when you're safe again, you can go out and tell people what happened. That's like, so how does it goes with the United States? It's like when the United States gets attacked, or when we don't feel safe, we want to hide. We need to protect ourselves. That's like part of the United States. That's part of the deal. And we'll get more into that. That's the low expression of the crab. Well, it's the whining, poor me, look at me and all that stuff. On the other side is Capricorn. Capricorn is the elder. Capricorn is the law. It's the hermit. It's the judge. But it's freedom. In the United States, it's the Constitution, it's freedom. Capricorn is the entire idea that by being a nation of law, we have freedom. That's where freedom comes from, is to have laws. If you don't have any laws, if anybody can do anything and think that the red light is just a suggestion, then you don't have freedom. You don't have safety. And they work together, because when you have laws that are like the right kind of laws, and you believe in it and everybody follows it, that means we have freedom, and that means we're safe. That's like, the Constitution is like the shell of the United States. When things happen, everybody says, well, yeah, but we have a Constitution. That's like, it's like, okay, we've got a Constitution. Things are going to be okay because we've got the Constitution. And that's like, like the chart of the United States, like the chart of the air we breathe. It's like our cultural chart. And it's, yes, we have our personal chart, but then we have a cultural chart, and that's the way we all react. It's like, you go to France and you don't hear anybody mention the Constitution. They do have a Constitution, but they're not Cancer. They don't this is not about the Constitution. They don't need a shell. We do. We like having a Constitution. Of course, the low side of Capricorn is, we've got God on our side and we can do anything we want. And we're going to export our democracy to everybody around the world because we know better. That's like the low side of Capricorn. It's like the judge. It's, it goes with we have the law and we're it, and we're like, that's like, we can get carried away with that. And so you can see how, like, when we get carried away with we've got the law and we're going to put our stuff, our way of doing stuff on everybody, the high side of Cancer of, let's take care of people and let's be kind and let's be careful with feelings and all that stuff, it really balances stuff out. And when we get into whining because, stuff happened to us and our feelings get hurt and, poor us and nobody likes us and all that, the having a Constitution and having the law is really, it balances stuff out. It brings us back. And so that's, I'm just going to touch on the moon and the ascendant because it kills me not to do it. So, well, those are like the three big things in your chart. I mean, you can ignore everything else, but you can't ignore the sun is who you are. Like, when we try to be somebody else, we don't do very well. When we pretend that we're tough and we can handle and we can do it, that kind of attitude and thing, eventually, everything crash and we're back into looking for a little shell, and thing. Now, the reason we do that, it's because we have our moon in Aquarius on the third house. Now, the moon is what makes us feel love and lovable. So when you feed your moon, when you do your moon right, anybody can come to you and say, I don't agree with you, and you don't care. Because you feel good, you like being like that. And nobody can tell you otherwise. The whole self-esteem stuff, that's your moon. That's the moon well done and thing. So the moon of the United States is Aquarius. Aquarius is the rebel. Aquarius is the thinking out of the box. Aquarius is inventing new stuff. Aquarius is like, the immigrant, the going out there where nobody has ever gone before. That's Aquarius. Now, we're like this, we like trying new things. We like changing stuff. We like, and all that. And I don't know about you, but do you really feel bad about that? Like if somebody came to you and say, oh, you guys, you always have to change and come up with new things that you think are better. And it's like, yeah, we do. Yeah. It's like, well, sometimes it doesn't work out too good, but, this is not a bad thing in itself. Like, we kind of like being like this. We have no intention of becoming people who okay, this works, so we're going to keep on doing it. It's like, no, could we do better? It's like, this is our thing, and we feel good about it. We do a lot of stupid things in the name of trying to do stuff better, but we don't care, because we like being like this. So that... Don't you? Don't you? And then there's the ascendant. The ascendant is what sign was at the horizon at the time of your birth. So it's not like a point there, but it's like that. So basically, if you were born at noon, your sun is going to be up there. And, because that's the horizon. So at the horizon, that's why the exact time of the birth is so important, because if you don't have the time of your birth, you can't put everything just at the right. So you don't know which house things are in, and you don't know what's on the ascendant. So the ascendant is, think of it as a filter. The ascendant is the color, like a colored glass. And it's the way you look at everything, and it's the way the world looks at you. And so it's like the United States ascendant is in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is about philosophy and studying, and it's kind of the gypsy, it's kind of like Sagittarius is interested in meeting new people and different cultures and all that kind of thing. It's like a perfect ascendant for a country of immigrants. Like, we are curious about the world. We like globalization. We think this is great to go in other countries and do stuff with them and try to get to know them and all that. It's like that big vision of the world. See how the sign Sagittarius, that's the glyph for it. It's an arrow. And it's called the archer. That's like like Cancer is the crab, Sagittarius is the archer. And my teacher says, actually, it's not the archer, it's the arrows. It's like that. Sagittarius has that kind of vision of the world, like you throw the arrows and it sees big. You know, it sees. It's part of the ninth house. And the ninth house, the traditional term for the ninth house, it's the house of long journey over water. They used to be very poetic. And long journey over water, why? Because at the time, in the Middle Ages and all that, the only way to meet people from a different culture was to take long journeys over water. And that was the house of, like, you know, it's also the house of churches. And part of it, it's because it goes with the, you know, with the student and all that, but also because churches are also the place where the community where you get to meet people who are very different than you. I mean, churches are probably maybe the only place left where there could be people from different political party doing something together, because, you know, that's like the place where we meet people that are different. And so the low side of Sagittarius is being over-optimistic. It's having really bad judgment. They're all like our thing of like, oh, we don't know how, but we'll figure it out and it's going to work. That's the low side. That's the shadow of Sagittarius. So you can tell that it's like the shadow of Sagittarius and the shadow of Uranus, of like, you know, we're just going to shake things up just to see what happens. And oh, Sagittarius, it's like, don't worry about it, we'll figure it out and it's going to work. How those two could really freak out a little Cancer. And you look at the story of the United States, and that's what we keep doing. We keep doing stuff like, oh, don't worry, it's going to work out and all that. You know, you look at the financial crisis, you look at all that. Yeah, it's going to work out. You know, it's like, it's the new economy. You know, it's like blah, blah, blah. You know, third house, Aquarius. We can talk like nobody else. You know, we can make a good story and thing. Third house, it's the storyteller. You know, it's like we're good at it. We can make a good story, so good we even believe it. And then it really triggers our ascendant, because that's the way we look at the world. And then, of course, sometimes it works out and we're really happy, and sometimes it doesn't work out and we totally freak out. And then when we totally freak out, what do? We are a little Cancer. So all of a sudden, we're going to build walls and we're not going to care about anybody else, and we're going to give healthcare and free stuff for everybody, and the government's going to do it, and we still don't know how we're going to pay for it, but trust me, it's going to work. You know, it's like, that's the little dance that we keep dancing, and that's our dance. So we like it. It's you know, but it's nice to know that this is what we're doing. We just keep freaking ourselves out, and then and you look at the history of the United States. That's what we keep doing. It's like we keep getting into isolationism, which is like, you know, oh, that's like kind of like the foreign policy of the United States. It's like, no, it's not. It's only our foreign policy when we freak out. When we are not freaked out, and, you know, we haven't broken the house, and the economy is doing kind of good, and we feel kind of safe, we do, you know, the Peace Corps. We do like the Great Society. We're like our little Cancer is like, oh, let's take care of all the poor and let's take care of everybody. And we're ready, like we're like ultra generous. But then we freak ourselves out, and then we want to build walls everywhere. And so that's our little dance. But on top of it, there are stuff happening, and we're only going to cover two of them, because we don't have time for the rest. So if you look at the thing there at the bottom, you can see there's the inner planet and the outer planets. So there's all the planets at the top, and then the first thing underneath it is how long does it take that planet to go around the Earth. Now, of course, you know, except for the moon. nothing goes around the Earth. And I'm just mentioning that just so you don't think like, what century is she from? But so you get the moon that goes 29 days, and then the number underneath it is how many days it takes to change sign. So the moon changes sign every 2.5 days. And then you've got Mercury, it goes around in 88 days, and it changes sign every 7.5 days. And it goes like this all the way till Mars. And Mars is the furthest one. It takes 687 days to go around, and it changes sign basically every 2 months. So those are like the close planet, the inner planet. You can tell that it's like, with those planets, all our charts are pretty different. Like if somebody was born 3 days after you or before you, their moon is not in the same sign. It's like you don't have the same thing. And it's like, so it makes us, it's like our individual story. Then there's a big jump, and you get to the outer planet, and the closest one is Jupiter, and it takes 12 years to go around. So Jupiter changes sign every year. So for 1 year, every kid was born on the Earth at that point has Jupiter in the same sign. And that's the closest one. Then it's like with Saturn is every 2.5 years. So we're covering a lot of people there. And then 7 years. When you get to Pluto, it's every 20 years. So Pluto, everybody from the same generation has Pluto in the same sign. And so it's like kind of like when we look at like how do you define the generations, like they don't take the signs, they like take all the thing and all that, but you look at it and you see like all the baby boomers have Pluto in Leo. Leo is the performer. Leo is the, I'm going to be on stage, and I'm going to be, that's the high Leo. The low Leo is the egomaniac. Look at me, look at me, look at me. But the high Leo is, I'm going to become visible. I'm going to care about what people say about me, and I'm going to be totally authentic. And I'm going to take that risk of being vulnerable and being seen and caring at the same time. And think, that's Leo. That's the baby boomers. The generation before, they had Pluto in Cancer. That's the generation we call the Great Generation. How selfless, and they took care of everybody. That's the, it's like you can tell the generation by where Pluto was and things. So that's not very personal. All of a sudden we're like talking about a large group of people. The thing with when transits happen, like you've got Mercury transiting, it's like, okay, well, it's going to transit your sun for like 2 days, It's not going to, as far as like, whether you should sign the contract on Wednesday or on Saturday, it's like that makes a difference. How it's going to influence your soul, it doesn't make any difference. But the outer planet, on the other hand, they come in and they stay there for a long time. So like, when Saturn goes over one of your planet, and because it goes back and forth and thing, and it's kind of, you start feeling it 2 or 3 degrees before and 2 or 3 degrees after and all that. We're talking 2 years where that influence is there. So it really changes you, and whether you work with it or against it, it's going to do something to you and thing. So that's what I'm looking at. We're going to be looking at Pluto and Neptune, because those are the two that are like really, really working on us. Just in case you haven't noticed. So we'll start. The thing with the outer planet working on us is that they work on so many people at the same time that it's really, really hard to tell what's going on, because everybody's got a different reaction, and really what you see is a lot of chaos. But then something, you look back at it 50 or 100 years later and you say, oh yeah, when that one thing happened, because, we totally forget that when it happened, nobody noticed because there was so much chaos. But that thing just grew. And, that, we look at it 20 or 50 years later and we say, wow, that was really important. And when that thing happened, that was because this was happening at the same time. And so there are stuff happening now, and we just don't, we can't pinpoint to it because we're in it. But one of the big things that's happening is that, okay, so you've got, Mercury. Mercury, when you look at your thing there, Mercury is associated with the 12th house. So Mercury is the mystic. Mercury is the planet that gets to us. I mean, since we're in the church, I think I can say that. It's like Mercury is how God gets through to us. God gets through to us with all the planet, but the whole spiritual kind of message that gets through is through Mercury. And Mercury, as you can tell, it goes very slowly. It changes sign every 14 years. Now, interestingly enough, Mercury is the first planet. I love the fact that those planets, when you look at the history of the planet, it's just perfect. It's like, it's the whole series of as above, so below. But it also goes the other way around, as below, so above. We don't see stuff before we are ready to see it. We can't. Perfect example, Uranus. Uranus is the planet of the individual. That's what makes us individual. It's the planet that associated with Aquarius, of the rebel, of the, it's like the idea that we are individuals. That's that energy. That's what Uranus is. Now, Uranus, when you know where to look, is visible with the naked eye. Not here because we have so much light, but if you go in the desert, in a place where there's no light pollution, you can see Uranus. And people in the Middle Ages and all that, first of all, they had no light pollution, so you could see everything everywhere in a way that we can't anymore. And they really knew the sky. They were crossing oceans with just the stars and all that. They knew their stuff. There is no reference to Uranus anywhere, in China, in Europe, anywhere. Nobody had ever seen Uranus. And it's not like they thought it was a star. It's like there's no reference to it anywhere. There was no consciousness of people as individuals at that point. People were part of a community. That's how you define yourself. You were part of that guild. You were part of that village. You were part of that church. You were part of that family. The idea that you existed as an individual outside of the group that you belonged to didn't exist. It's like you couldn't exist outside of your group. You couldn't survive outside of your group. Uranus got discovered in 1780, just at the time of the American Revolution, of the French Revolution. And what was the French Revolution and the American Revolution? It was all about discovering that as individual, maybe we had a say in the whole thing. Maybe we could the whole idea of individuality came in at that point. And once we had it in us, we could see it out there. So that's Uranus. Neptune is the planet of mysticism, of spirituality and things. Neptune was the first planet that was discovered by mathematical calculation. They calculated there was stuff happening that were things were not moving the way they were supposed to move. They were getting crooked and things. So somebody calculated, okay, well, something out there is having a pull on things, and regularly planets are not, they're moving like this, and then there's something is pulling them. So somebody calculated where that thing should be in order to pull other stars and other planets, other stars this way. And that's how it was discovered. They calculated the thing, and then they went and looked for it, and they found it. And this is the planet that represents spirit. Of course, you can't see spirit. You can feel it. You can feel the effect. That's how we know that God is involved in it. It's like, they're all like, I smell God. It's because things start happening, and it's not, you can't explain it logically with what you know, and there's something going on there, and then you can see it. But it's like, and Neptune is that, and that was the first one. And even better, the guy who calculated who did the calculation, it was a French mathematician, and his name is Le Verrier. And Le Verrier in French is the glassmaker. It's like, people have names based on their guild. And Le Verrier were people who made stained glass windows. And he's the one who discovered Neptune. Don't you love that? So we have Neptune, and Neptune, the natural sign of Neptune is Pisces. Pisces is the sign of mysticism and thing. And so Neptune and Pisces, even though they're not the same thing, they have the same energy. So when Neptune gets into Pisces, all of a sudden things click. It's like Neptune on steroids, and things. So Neptune entered Pisces in 2012. This is not the first time that Neptune entered Pisces, because it goes around every 165 years and thing. But this is the first time we know about it. Because since we discovered Neptune, Neptune has never been in Pisces. We discovered Neptune, I can't remember when, but it was like 1800 and something and things. So it's like, this is the first time that we actually are aware that Neptune is in Pisces. So my teacher tells that story to explain what Neptune in Pisces does to people. It's like, his story is like, okay, so there is this skinhead guy, really angry and really like got gun everywhere, tattoos everywhere, really like, like fascist type of guy and all that. He's in his pickup truck, he's driving down the road, and he wants to listen to his violent skinhead music, whatever that is and thing. And he pushed the button on his radio, and he pushed the wrong button. And comes in the Hallelujah of Handel. And for 10 seconds there, he's totally transported in a different reality. 10 seconds, 12 seconds. It's like, and then he said, I hate that stuff. But that's what Neptune, it's like Neptune in Pisces can get to us and bring us to a different level of awareness. To everybody. Now, Neptune in Pisces, it's not just happening in the United States. It's happening all over the world. Everybody's got Neptune in Pisces right now. And it's going to be in there till for 12 years, for 14 years. And thing. So it's going to be a while. And, till the 2026. So there are things, like things happen, like before Neptune gets into Pisces, it's in Aquarius, and Aquarius is the sign of thinking out of the box. And I looked at a few dates and things to see like what happened when and all that. And there are things very interesting. It's that, for example, since we're at St. Paul, when Paul went and got this whole Christian things figured out and all that, and he went to Jerusalem the first time and he started talking about it, it was not well received. He pretty much got kicked out. Neptune was in Aquarius. Aquarius is the don't tell me what to do, don't tell me what to think. But it's also when we come up with brilliant ideas and things, The second time he went, pretty much said the same thing to pretty much the same people. It was not that far after And they say, why don't you come back tomorrow? Let's talk some more. Neptune was in Pisces. That's like the difference between the first visit and the second visit. The Reformation, when Luther nailed a piece of paper on the thing, Neptune was in Aquarius. New ideas, new concept, what about us? Like, let's do something about it. It was just at the end of Aquarius. By the time Neptune got into Pisces, it was spreading all over the place. It was the same thing with Islam. When Islam, which at the time was like the new idea, the new thing and all that, when Islam spread from, got out, it spread all around the Mediterranean and thing, all the way to Spain, and not via this way. They went all over this way. In 10 years, Neptune was in Pisces. There's something that happened when Neptune is in Pisces that's like, we are open to guidance, to spiritual guidance. There's something that happened to everybody. That's when like ideas start spreading. It's the ideas that came up during the rebel period, and then so just keep this in mind that right now something is trying to get through. Then we get at what's happening in the United States. So in the United States, you've got Pluto. Now, Pluto is it's the unconscious. It's the shadow. And that's the low version of it. The high version of Pluto is that when we deal with our shadow and all that, that's our sense of destiny. When we know what we're here for, that we know the meaning of our lives, that's because we dealt with Pluto. It's like you can't, if you don't never deal with your unconscious, if you never deal every time somebody pushes your buttons, you just shove it under the rug, pretty soon you have no sense of what your life is about. You kind of like, and all that and thing. So Pluto, the high Pluto, like that's what Pluto does and thing. Pluto, since we're into like when it was discovered, Pluto was discovered in 1930. Just at the time that we came up with the unconscious. Not that we didn't have one before, but we didn't know about it. And all of a sudden, we know about it, and it appears up there. And so Pluto's done a few things interesting. Whenever Pluto hits something in your natal chart, it brings up your shadow. Pluto is kind of like the planet that says, okay, time to deal with that. The stuff you don't want to talk about, the thing you don't want to look at. Pluto is there to say, okay, you're ready. Barely, but you're ready. Let's go for it. So the United States, Cancer, we like to be safe. We like our little shell. Pluto, when the ascendant, whatever hit the ascendant, hits the entire chart, because that's the way we look at everything, and that's the way we appear to other people. So whatever happens there, it hits everything. And that when Pluto hits the ascendant, it triggers the shadow of the sun, because this is of who we are at our core. Pluto hit the ascendant of the United States on 9/11/2001. I can tell you, it's like the United States the Constitution was not signed at 5:10, like Benjamin Franklin said. It was signed at 5:11, because at 5:11, that makes Pluto right on the ascendant of the United States on 9/11, at the degree exact. And what did it do? It triggered Cancer, because that's the thing. It's like, you can't touch our shell. It's like you can't get in our shell. We'll go fight you anywhere, but don't come to us, because we're Cancer. We don't let, it's like, unless you've got a visa, you're not getting in. And it's like that. So that was the first thing, the first shake-up. And then Pluto went, down and all that. And it just it's about like right here, right now. So it's entering It's like right here. It goes back and forth. So it was right here for at the election time, and then it went back in, and then now it's going backwards a little bit. And planets do not go backwards. I'm not like crazy and saying it's just they look like they do. You know, kind of like if you're at the train station, you're in your train, and there's a train next to it, and they start moving, or you start moving, and then all of a sudden you look, and it looks like the train is going backwards. That's that kind of thing that happens. So all of a sudden it looks like they're going backwards, so it's like, you know. And so Pluto is around there. So the first house is all about who we are. And I don't know if and the way things go, you know, it's like, it hits, and it's kind of like you just join the class and they tell you what the exam's going to be about and how much you got to study, what you got to study, and the first thing is like, oh my God, and then you kind of forget about it and go party and all that stuff, and then you get like really close to it, and it's like, oh my God, you know, I need to start studying, and you get to the end and you're really cramming. It's kind of like we kind of do that, you know, it doesn't matter and things. So 2001, then we got like, you know, blah, 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 and we kind of, and then we got to like, you know, 2008, 2010, and I don't know if you've noticed, but all of a sudden, we're like obsessed with like the big argument is, this is not who we are. I don't know if I missed it in the other election, but I don't remember entire campaign being about who we are, except that Pluto is in the first house, and this is what it's triggering. It's like, who are we? And the other thing is that it's right there, and it's right opposite to our sun. We don't have just the sun. You can look in the chart. We've got like 3,000 planets right there. So Pluto is hitting one planet after another and going back and forth over it. So all our shadow stuff, as the United States, is coming up. It's like everything, like the way, you know, like, are we really who we think, who we say we are? Like all the stuff, you know, you can point at like fake news, and fake news is not new. Fake news is like an American invention, you know. It's like, this is what we've always done, you know. It's like, you look at like everything, you know, it's like, I mean, there were elections where, my personal favorite is like, you know, election where the way the guy won is by spreading the news that the opponent was dead. And you know, before Facebook, how hard it was to tell people you were alive? When somebody had said you were dead and had bought the papers and had published it and all that stuff. It's like, I mean, Benjamin Franklin published stuff about like what was happening and before we signed the Constitution. That was like, you know, we always done it. But now you get Pluto of the United States that's here, the sun is here, and then right here, you've got Uranus that's perfectly squaring the two. So it's triggering the two. And Uranus is all about individuality and like, you know, and it's like, okay, who are you? And it's triggering, who are you really? You know, how different are you from what you pretend to be? You know, they're all like, oh, we've got God on our side and we can't do anything wrong. And we really never did anything wrong. Like, you know, it was not that bad. And it was like, you know, oh, racism is over. You know, it's like, you know, we like our little story about ourselves. And Pluto is really, you know, kind of kicking us and say, come on, look at this. And we're like, no, really, it wasn't that bad. I was not alive. You know, it wasn't me, and that was the best we could do, and now let's move on, because, you know, we've got that moon in Aquarius, and we like to move on. We don't like to stick around for those conversations and things. It's like, you know, it's negative, it's not productive. It's like, you know, let's just move on with this thing. So that's what Pluto is doing, and it's, you know, it's going, it's, you know, going over our sun, it's going over Mars, about Venus and all that stuff, and it's getting pretty close to Mercury, which is all about information and facts as opposed to meaning and opinions, which is, the high Sagittarius is actually taking facts and having meaning attached to it. The low Sagittarius is like, who cares about fact? Let's just have meaning. And let's just make up stories that we like. And it's, it's like all that stuff is being triggered. And if you think this is bad, you're going to love what's coming. Pluto of the United States is right there. Now, Pluto takes 245 years to go around. So, no human beings have ever had a Pluto return. But the interesting thing is, I can't find another country right now that we know of who actually had a Pluto return, because we're the oldest country. Isn't that a kick? Because we have we have the same constitution for 245 years. Now, there are plenty of countries who have older cultures, but their present incarnation is not that old. France is 1958, turned 49 years old 2 days ago. That was their constitution. There was it is not the 14th of July, it's not the revolution. After the revolution, they had 4 constitutions, 3 kings, an emperor. I mean, it's like France right now is Libra. It's like the United States, we made it 245 years, so as a gift, we get to go through a Pluto return, which means we really get to look at our stuff. And then it's going to get even better, and I won't even get into it and think. But that's what's going on. It's like we really get to look at our stuff. And it's like therapy. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to, it is not like, okay, racism, check. It's not like this. It's just you need to look at it, kind of deal with all the emotion that comes with it and all the mess that goes with it, and then one day you realize, I'm doing so much better with that. And you don't really know when it happened, but it's, it's really like we're getting like group therapy on a global level. Yeah.
What was it you were saying about that, though? That is putting in number 2? It's karma side.
Well, Gemini, the 3rd house, is about facts. Sagittarius is about meaning. So it's like when it works well together, the meaning has something to do with the facts. Sometimes it doesn't work that way, though. Sometimes we kind of like forget the fact. Or the low side of Gemini, which, the high side is to report the facts. The low side of Gemini is to kind of rearrange the facts so we like it better and think. And then we do meanings based on that. That whole thing. That's like anything. So that's what's happening. We're like, getting into it. But don't forget that there is Neptune in Pisces. So when Neptune is in Pisces, we're getting, information that are on the spiritual level. That's like we're getting guidance. And right now, Neptune in the chart of the United States is right up there. Neptune is in Pisces in the chart of the United States. It's right there. So it's getting opposite. So in like 2 years, Neptune out there is transiting, is going to be right opposite to the chart, to Neptune in the chart of the United States. Now, Neptune in the chart of the United States is in Virgo. Virgo and Pisces work together. Pisces is like your spiritual practice. Virgo is the service. You do service, you don't have a spiritual practice, you're going to burn out really fast. You have a spiritual practice, you don't do you don't do service, it's kind of like you're a spiritual egomaniac, you know. I'm going to get enlightened, you know, and think. And it's like they work together. So when Virgo's going to be, you know, Neptune's going to be out there in Pisces, and it's going to like work with our sense, the American sense of service, that we're here to serve. And we kind of like forget about the whole thing because we're so freaked out. But it's like that's really what's happening like out there. That's kind of like, you know, a lot of the message that, you know, that's trying to get through is that, you know, we're here to serve. A reminder that it's like, okay, it's time to like stretch out and be here to serve. So what form it's going to take, it's all up to us. It's not.
Christiane, why don't we open it up for some questions? I think probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Paul.
Can you give us a peek into like 2020 election cycle and looking at it?
No, because it's all up to us. It's going to be what we make it. There's no, it's like we can't get out of freedom. You know, we can't say, oh yes, we have free will and we have free thing, but could somebody make things happen for us while we get our act together? It's like, no, this is it. This is up to us. This is not, there is no prediction. It's, you know, all we know is that, okay, we're getting to look at our shadow, and then we can do whatever we want with that. We can shove it into the rug, under the rug and deal with the consequences, or we can deal with it. And I think what's going to happen in 2020 is going to depend on what we do with all that shadow stuff that's coming up.
Are there other questions?
Are you totally overwhelmed?
Your second question has mine. It has farmer tie-in, but I think she kind of explained it in there like it's up to us to have deal with things or not. Like whether possibly feel like we don't deal with things, then we're going to have to deal with it more mess. Right? I was thinking how the farmer tie-in.
Well, you know, when you look at stuff on the daily level, on the personal level, we don't want the mess. You know, we want to clean things up. But when you look at it on a higher level, you know, on the soul level and thing, it's like, you know, mess is good. That's how we grow. It's like, you know, it's like the goal of life is not to have everything all tidy and everybody's really nice and all that. That's not what we're here for. We're here to grow and to learn. And mess is a great way to learn and to grow.
If I may say one other thing.
Yes.
I put this in there. Because we have such heavy karma for our history of slavery and our continuing exploited and inhumane treatment of African Americans and people of color, and its history with Native Americans, what we did to them. We keep on accumulating more heavy karma that we've never made a serious lasting effort to clean up.
Yeah, and Pluto is going to be right across from Mercury. And Mercury is your word. You know, and we have broken our word over and over and over again. And it's like it's coming back for us to look at it. And, you know, it is really like therapy. It is not like, oh, we've got to, you know. It's, you know, it's like we just need to look at it. And, you know, we're ready. We're ready. Barely, but we're ready. Yes.
If you were to recommend a beginner's book for evolutionary astrology, what would that be?
Stephen Forrest's book on the inner, the book, a good book for evolutionary astrology.
So the beginner's book for evolutionary astrology, what do you recommend? And what's your favorite book?
Well, I go back to Stephen books a lot, and you know, he's got that one book, The Inner Sky, that's like covers, you know, the basic stuff and thing, and then he's got huge books on each planet.
Can you write his name down?
and it's called The Inner Sky.
Can you see that?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Good.
And he's got a great website, if you know. Yeah.
Other questions? Yeah, let's use the mic if you will.
As modern day astrologers go and horoscopes, would you have a recommendation on someone to follow in that line?
Say that again.
Modern day astrologers and horoscopes, would you have someone to follow in that line?
I don't really look at horoscope. Really, honestly, I just study with Stephen. I'm like a one, I started studying with him. I like the way he's doing stuff. I know about 1/10 of what he knows. So it's not like I got to the point where it's like, okay, Steve, it's time for me to move on. And, that's like, and I don't really do horoscope and stuff like this because I'm not that I'm not that interested in like prediction and thing, and I'm more interested in like, okay, what is my life about on the big thing, and where am I going with that, and then on the ground level. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, as you're suggesting, at some point when Neptune meets Pisces, there's going to be major change. How does the hurricanes, obviously the false flags like Las Vegas and earthquakes, this is all, the Earth's reacting to something that's going to come.
Yeah.
How do you see this? Explain this.
For me, astrology is about our soul and our soul journey and things. So I think the hurricane has to do with global warming. And then the bad decision that we've been making all along, that has something to do with it. But it's not, we don't have a hurricane now because, Pluto, and maybe. But, that's not the way I look at things. It's like,
Here.
yeah.
Do you do personal charts?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I think that's kind of one of the questions that people were hedging towards.
Yeah.
So you do. Thank you.
And on the thing, you have my email address.
I love the expansive ways in which you explain all this. And it leaves so much room for our own individual evolution and our own decision makings from moment to moment, instead of thinking, I got to do this. Each time somebody predicts something for me, I feel like I'm being so influenced that I just think of that one narrow path. And I really don't like that. Except my mind likes it.
Yeah.
Or my thinking life. Yes, because then I have, the crumbs on the floor that I'm following. But in this case, the birds are picking up the crumbs and I can't see them. It's good.
Thank you. Yes.
When you talk about evolutionary astrology, are you talking about karma or destiny or free will or all of the above? So that the karma of the United States is to have these events occur now so it can examine itself again, how it's thinking, if it's, walking its talk and so on.
Yeah, if you look at the United States like a person. Okay, the United States was born in 1776. And then you look at everything that happens before that, that's the past life. So before that, there was all those things with, with slavery, with, all that. And it's like, that's what we were born with. And, you can, I could do like okay, this is the past life of the United States. It's a lot easier with a country because you actually know what happened. So you can pinpoint to the fact that it's like part of our karma is that we are all immigrant. And we have the karma of people who have no roots, who have to leave all home. And what it does to us, and that's something we don't want to talk about. The fact that, we are all immigrant. And we're like, oh yeah, but we're all immigrant. It's like, yeah, that means we all have we've been all being traumatized by having to leave our homeland and leaving our culture, our original culture and all that. And even though, for most people it was not this lifetime, but it's in the karma of the United States. That's why I think we're like cancer, because that's part of what cancers have to deal with. It's that old home thing and that old safety. And immigrants don't feel particularly safe.
Okay. I have another question. A lot of people talk about the influences of earlier cultures like the Native American, or even further back, the Atlantean culture, on the as an imprint on the culture of the United States. Would you say there's a difference between, say, the history of the land of the continent of North America versus the creation of the United States of America? And is there different karmic influences on either one? Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I really don't know enough about it, and I never thought of it. And it's like, can we talk later? It's an interesting, the history of the land. But I really don't know enough about what the history of the land in the United States was before, like way before, to see if there is any connection there. But yeah, I'm sorry.
Let's do one more question.
This isn't a question. It's to give an example to the woman who said, do you do personal readings? Whoever that was. Christiane I have had my astrological chart read by Christiane. Can you hear me? Oh, sorry. I've had my chart read by Christiane. I was a little skeptical, but decided to go for it. And one of the things I was struggling with tremendously was the restraint I felt in my relationship with my husband, because I'm his caregiver, and identifying as a free-spirited artist, but being put in the position of having to take care of him. And Christiane said, Leslie, I don't understand what the problem is. You are an Aries. You have the sun in your 7th house, which is relationship. I think I have this right. And Mars is also in your chart. So what that means is your journey in your life is to become a warrior. And how do you become a warrior other than to learn courage? And how do you learn courage unless somebody is there to teach you courage? So your husband and this illness, you're not going to go out and learn courage on your own. We don't want to. It's too hard. You have to be forced in that position. So this circumstance in your life is actually your soul work on this planet to learn how to become a warrior. It's a little bit of a long story, but it was groundbreaking to me. This happened last summer, and after years of resistance, I dropped it. And I've had this sense of courage, and it's radiated out into all different parts of my life since then. And I've been able to own it and say, oh, maybe I'm not that free-spirited artist that I thought I was. I'm actually here training as a warrior. And the warrior's job is to keep people safe and to keep people contained, and ultimately to be a warrior is about freedom. It's not quite I think I've got it pretty close to that. But it was, I just mentioned it to say that it's a very, very powerful blueprint to inform our life. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Lester.
Well, let's give a hand to Christiane.
Thank you.
And I'm sure she'll be around to visit and talk for a while. So thank you again for coming, and we hope to see you back soon. And feel free to socialize with Christiane.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.